Welcome to WiseTake.com. This is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And yes, I'm bringing you another NBA DFS podcast. It is Wednesday, February 1st, 2017. We're gonna try to start off the month of February right, and so far so good. We ended January on a good note. I ended January on a good note. Hoping to keep the momentum going. I've been playing more DraftKings lately, and I've been liking it. And I've spoken to people in the past. A lot of people used to ask me why I prefer to play FanDuel, because for a long time, for years, I preferred FanDuel. And the reason was because the pricing I felt was softer on FanDuel. You can get away with a lot more. And while I still feel that way, I find that on FanDuel, because you can fit everybody a lot of the time, you're a little too afraid to leave some salary on the table, if that makes any sense. Whereas DraftKings, it kind of forces you to make plays that maybe generally you weren't comfortable with before, but it helps you get better at those kind of situations. And I think in DraftKings, you don't have as much of a choice but to play the value guy, that last minute value guy that we talked about. We talked about yesterday. Sometimes the slates will tell you who to play, and we saw it last night. Hopefully, you made the right pivots. Porzingis was ruled out, which meant that it was okay to fire off Melo and Cash. In the podcast I said to fade Melo. I was going to fade Melo if Porzingis was playing. However, they ruled Porzingis out literally, I think, 15, 20 minutes before lock. So, which was actually their game. So right before their game. And my understanding is that the reason that they did it so late was because Porzingis was going to try to play. But anyway, I went through a mad scramble. I threw in Carmelo. I threw in Hernangomez, which Hernangomez was pretty much the guy. So here's a guy who's, when he's on the court, he's crushing. Problem is he's not on the court enough, right? So if you have a situation where you know they're thin, you know they're starting, you know he was one of the guys that didn't play too many minutes in that 4 overtime game the other day. He was the guy you wanted, and I think he was a great pivot play off of Zubac. Granted, Zubac was significantly cheaper, at least on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I think it was only Hernangomez was 3,900. He was only under $500. So it doesn't make sense. Like, don't try to force it. I think Zubac was kind of the value all day. But just because there's value all day, it doesn't mean there's not going to be better value opening up later. So it's very, very important that you key in on these injuries. Yeah, it's important with stud. You want to get your studs right, of course. You want to get your core players right. But you have got to pay attention to the news before lock. You've got to have up Twitter. You got to have whatever your source is. I like to use the Fantasy Labs Twitter, whether it's Roto Grinders or whatever source you're going to use to get your news. You have got to be on top of it, or you're in trouble. I mean, there's a lot of guys that might have had Porzingis, didn't realize he was out, and they got stuck with a zero, a goose egg. How are you going to win? How are you going to win when the rest of the field? I mean, I think like Hernangomez in the $25 double up on DraftKings, he was 30-something% owned. That means 30-something% of people pivoted to him last minute in a cash game. So if you're not one of those 30% that did it, you're already behind. If you have Zubac in there still, who he did well, don't get me wrong, I'm not sure what he finished with, but I'm sure he did fine. The point is you have to adjust to the late time news. Sometimes these slates, now I'm talking about cash games, and GPPs, hey, you're taking chances anyway. You don't want to play too many chalky guys anyway, although I've noticed in the NBA sometimes trying to be too contrarian can really bite you in the butt. But more or less, the NBA it tells you who to play, in your cash games. You kind of get an idea. Like DeRozan was announced out. What does that mean? Everybody go to Lowry. I mean, they tell you who to put in your cash games. And these 50-50s and these. Now, head-to-heads is a different story because that's just you and one other person. There's no telling what that other person did. Could be a random player, you don't know. But in 50-50s and double ups, those kind of cash games, the slate will if you pay attention long enough and you're patient long enough, the slate will kind of tell you who to play. So you don't want to ignore that stuff. You can't. Last night was a perfect example. The only reason I cashed last night, and I cashed in all my cash games, was because I made those pivots. I had Lowry. I had Jennings. Jameer Nelson was fine. But you got to have those guys. Now, initially, I said on the podcast to be careful with Jennings because he played 53 minutes the game before, and I meant that. But if Porzingis isn't playing, if one of their top producers are not playing, so you have, the 3 producers on the team supposedly, Rose, Melo, Porzingis, right? So if you're going to tell me that Rose is out and now Porzingis is out, that just leaves Melo. The only person left on the roster, whether he played 30-something minutes or not, 53 minutes or not, is Jennings. You kind of had to go with him. And on DraftKings, what was he, 5,100 or something like that? He was cheaper than Jameer Nelson. And he's been performing better when he gets those minutes. He's been performing better than Jameer Nelson. So you got to pay attention, and you got to think about things. We talk about things early in the podcast, but things can change. This is just to get you thinking. Things will change, especially on a slate like tonight. We got 12 games or something like that. On a 12-game slate, you got to expect some late-night news coming. And a lot of these games that are starting after lock, which is most of the games, you're not going to have that information on. So you got to work with what you got. If you find out an early game has a last-minute adjustment, you better believe that value play that opened up is going to be chalk. But at the same time, you don't want to be the guy fading that in your cash games. In GPPs, you want to fade it, be my guest. But in a cash game, you don't want to fade that. You don't want to be too want to be too contrarian in cash, because if you're wrong and the rest of the field is right, you're not getting anything. You're not. So in cash games, you're looking for value. You're looking for not value. You're looking for safety. And safety and value kind of correlate. If a guy is going to get starters minutes, but he's priced at like a third string or second string bench player, that's value, because his salary is here anticipating him to only get 15 minutes or so. But he's actually going to get 30 or 35, or in Brandon Jennings' case, 37. So it's important to pay attention and think about it and be open-minded, and don't play any biased opinions. Don't not play Hernan Gomez because he burned you last time. If you know he's going to get minutes, he's in a spot where he's going to get minutes, you can't fade him, because he will burn you again. And this time it's going to be because you're not on him. So you don't pay attention. Anyway, we're going to move on to today. So obviously the slate is too large. I'm not going to go over every play there is. I'm just going to talk over some of the things that I think people want to hear about, some of the things that are most interesting, and if I come across something I like, maybe I'll throw it out there. But anyway, Russell Westbrook is 12-6 on FanDuel, 12K on DraftKings. It's the back end of a back-to-back. He did phenomenal yesterday against the Spurs. I said he would be a good contrarian play. I faded Boogie and Harden, not to pat myself on the back. That was nerve-wracking. It's never comfortable when you're fading those guys. But I figured it would be a blowout. I figured the Kings would be a little tired. And, I said they're flying from Philly all the way out to Houston, and they're playing a super fast-paced team. And so anyway, going back to Westbrook. He's got a great matchup against Chicago. He's on TV. I think people who didn't play him last night regretted it. And the people who played Boogie and Harden over him are going to regret that. And they're going to come back today on Westbrook. And I don't blame them. I don't know if you have to go there, because I think point guard is certainly deep enough. But because some of these other guys are priced up, at least on FanDuel anyway, it makes it interesting. Like Isaiah Thomas is 10-6 on FanDuel. So he's only $2,000 cheaper than Westbrook. So maybe why take Westbrook if you could take IT2 at 10-6? Now, of course, that's going to depend on whether Avery Bradley plays or not. If Avery Bradley plays, obviously IT2's ownership is going to go lower, because people are going to say, hey, I'm paying 10-6 or on DraftKings 9-5 for a player that's supposed to have X amount of usage. But if Bradley's back, that usage is going to drop, right? So that's something to consider. But I think Westbrook he's always in play. And Chicago's point guards are horrible. The best one they have right now is probably Wade, and he ain't stopping Westbrook. So I would imagine maybe they could try to put Butler on him. I don't know for sure if they could do that. The problem with Oklahoma City is you kind of can, because nobody else on their team, especially with Cantor out, can really score. So I think Westbrook is interesting. He's certainly in play. I'm not going to tell you not to play him. But again, you got to look around and make up your mind, because there's a lot of good plays today. Speaking of point guards, Giannis on DraftKings I believe he's only a point guard eligible. So you don't have the flexibility of playing him at small forward, shooting guard, or center, or whatever. It looks like he's only power forward eligible on DraftKings. Now on FanDuel, he is still shooting guard eligible. And on FanDuel, he's only 9-9. Now, they're giving you that Utah discount. On DK, not only is he taking up a point guard spot on a slate where point guard is pretty deep, but he's also not really getting much of that Utah discount. He's still 10-1. So I'd like to see a bigger discount. I'm not too crazy about Giannis, but just like I said about Westbrook yesterday, he's a good contrarian play. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him, because there are so many other studs in better spots and better matchups. So Lowry, once again, I think he's going to be my cash game play. I know he played overtime last night. He played mega minutes. But as you saw evident last night, even when he has a slow start, the team needs him. If they're going to be in the game at all, they need him. And against Boston, I don't see why they won't be in the game. Even they could be tired, and Boston has been playing better, don't get me wrong. But defensively, Boston's really struggled. So if if Lowry can find some open guys, if he can get Ross and Powell and what's his name, Carroll, some open looks, it could be some easy assists for him. So I do think that Lowry is certainly in play at 8.7K on FanDuel, 8.6 on DraftKings. His price didn't go up. I'm surprised. DeRozan's already out. He's missing yesterday and today, so we know he's out. So that means Lowry's going to soak up all that usage yet again. So I definitely like Lowry. The only thing I'll say about Steph Curry, I'm not crazy about that game. I think that game's blowout city. I think Golden State's going to wipe the floor with them. I really do. But I will say if you want to play Steph Curry, on DK he's only 8.5. So I think on FanDuel his price is ridiculous. But on DK he's 8.5. So if you want to play Curry, I would recommend playing him on DraftKings. Conley's in another great spot against Denver. Dragic is another solid play. Teague, great spot against Elf. We saw that the Elf's defense is horrid. So if you want to take Teague against it, be my guest. Kyrie at home against Rubio with no love sounds like an enticing matchup. I think Kyrie and LeBron kind of disappointed people last time. Now, the slate was smaller, so the impact wasn't as big. This is a big slate, so if they disappoint you this time, it's going to hurt. However, I do think people might step away from them just because of the fact that they were burnt last time. So I think they're interesting, and I wouldn't mind if you want to put Lowry in your cash. If you want to put a guy like Kyrie in your cash games over Lowry, I wouldn't be so upset. This guy, if you need to save the value, I understand. If you got to save the money, Lowry's a lot more expensive. So if you have to go there, I get it. Me personally, I prefer Lowry, but Kyrie at home, you know how the big three does at home, and there's no love. That means there's only a big two. I would imagine the big two at home is going to do something similar. Granted, they're playing Minnesota, who's a slower-paced team and one of the better defensive teams. Well, I shouldn't say they're one of the better. They're not necessarily one of the better defensive teams. They're just one of the. They're coached defensively. They have a good defensive coach in Thibodeau. But anyway. Austin Rivers in a pretty good spot. Brandon Jennings, once again. So Jennings, Jameer Nelson are your two guys that, if I'm assuming Moutier is out. If Moutier plays, then forget about Jameer. Then forget about Jameer. That's it. But Jennings, I'm pretty sure Rose is still in a boot. So Rose is almost guaranteed to be out, which means Jennings should get another run. Now, they have guys they can put in there. They got Holiday that can run the point a little bit, although he's been playing terrible. Ron Baker is somebody who's been getting a lot of chances lately. They could run him out there. But Jennings is going to be the guy. He's the veteran. He's going to be the guy that gets the minutes. I'm sure that Melo prefers when Jennings is in the game. I'm sure that KP prefers it. Whether or not he plays doesn't matter. But I definitely think that Jennings is in another good spot. Is he going to be tired? Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be tired. Do you have to go there? No. But if you get the idea that everybody's going there in cash, you don't want to miss the boat on that. Rajon Rondo, I think, is interesting for GPPs only. Cash games, you don't know what he's going to play. You can't really trust him. But at GPPs, I definitely think he's certainly interesting today. And, of course, you got Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear's in play, but his price did come up a little bit. So you're not getting that. He's not exactly the – he's still pretty much a lock, I think, depending. If Barea and D. Will are still out, of course. Let me give that disclosure. If they are still out, then I think Yogi Bear is still in play. However, he's going to have to earn it a little bit more. He's been playing phenomenal, so I'm not too worried about it. But just keep in mind that now he's a little more expensive. So you're going to need to, if he doesn't hit what he's been hitting lately, you might be a little more upset. But still definitely think he's a good play. Moving on to shooting guard. Before I touch on shooting guard, just to remind you guys, it's Wednesday, which means we've got WiseTake live tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you're back here. You can check it on the YouTube channel, the WiseTake YouTube channel, or if you just go to wisetake.com. If you look on the right of the website, the right screen, and you scroll down, you will eventually see the WiseTake live window that you could watch right there. So make sure you tune in tonight. You can ask some questions and all that stuff. We'll do a live feed. Anyway, moving on to shooting guard. I think Wade's okay. I got to share the quote by Waders. This guy is just full of quotes. We had the meme going the other day about his quote where he said he forgot his favorite quote. This is what he says this time. I don't know if exactly this. I might not have it exactly right, but this was the gist of it. I'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9. Now, as a DFS player, doesn't that make you smile? Doesn't it make you want to smile? Doesn't it make you want to play this guy in every lineup? I'm with you. Now, listen, if you were my teammate, it'd probably piss me off to hear you say that. But as a DFS player, this music to my ears. I love it. Bring it on. Hey, bring it on. Yeah, me too. I'd rather see you go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9 too. If I'm rostering waiters, I would much rather see an 0 for 30 and show me that he tried than see an 0 for 9 to show me that, we just wasn't having it tonight, right? So, had to share that quote. I definitely like that. I think Levine is in a very good spot. He's been inconsistent, but hey, Cleveland struggles against the two, and you're going to have Levine against Shumpert, I think, or Corver, or Liga. Who? So I definitely like Levine. I think he's a matchup nightmare for them, considering LeBron's going to have to stay with Wiggins. They're going to have to keep an eye on Cat, obviously, and then even Rubio, you got to watch him at the point. So that kind of leaves Levine open. That kind of leaves Levine with the weak link. Even Gorgie Dieng, I know I'm not talking about power forwards yet, but even him with Kevin Love out, he's going to be matched up against Richardson and Fry most likely. So even him, he's in a pretty good spot. Who's going to stop him from crashing the boards? Anyway, I think Redick's in a really good spot. I actually like Redick a lot, especially if you correlate him with Blake. Redick makes a lot of his baskets on assists. Blake is one of the better assisters, you know what I mean, on the team. So I definitely like Redick. And as far as the Dallas guys, Seth Curry, his price came way up. On FanDuel, wow, his price is way up. So I don't think you have to go there. You can, and you can in cash if you want. If you're really confident he's going to get those minutes, which I don't. As long as D. Will and Barea are out, he's going to get those minutes. It's just now his price is up there to where the minutes aren't necessarily, at least on FanDuel. On FanDuel, his price is up so high that the minutes aren't going to do it enough. He's going to have to actually have a good game. So, you got to make that decision. Well, okay. Without DeRozan is definitely out. So Powell is certainly still in play. I don't know what his price is. I didn't check, but keep an eye on that and monitor, see how high it went. If it didn't move at all, hey, you got to lock him in. Now, if Bradley plays, I'm probably off Powell because Bradley is actually one of the better defenders in the league. Even though lately, even before his injury, he hadn't been. He'd been pretty bad on defense before he got hurt. So it's interesting to see, was it the injury the whole time? Was it he being a little lazy? Was he tired? You don't know. But if he comes back, I'm off Powell. But if he's out, you got to like Powell again, right? And it's an important injury news because it obviously impedes on Isaiah Thomas. I like Isaiah Thomas a lot more, obviously, if Bradley is out than if he's in. So there's some stuff you got to pay attention for. Yeah. Okay. Small forward. Now, once again, we find ourselves with another ugly small forward position. LeBron is like 11K on FanDuel, which I think is kind of absurd. I get why. I get it. But the team in general has been struggling. So to bump him up to 11K, I just don't see the justification. Now, let's see. He hasn't broken 60 in a long time, since December 20th. So to pay 11K and he only really hits value on this huge slate if he hits over 50, like minimum 55 I think you need. That's not a lock, I don't think. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about under normal circumstances. In this matchup, I actually really do like LeBron, but I'm definitely going to play him on DraftKings where he's significantly cheaper. On DraftKings, he is 10-2. So that's what I'm used to. I'm used to paying 10 for LeBron. But 11 is steep, and I got to get used to that. And on a small slate, I get it. You want to force him in there on FanDuel because you have to buy the points. But on this slate, you might not necessarily have to. Now, I do think LeBron is an interesting play today. I do actually like LeBron. I just don't want to pay 11 for him. I'll pay 10-2 for him on DraftKings. And the reason I like LeBron is because I think people might back up away from him just because Wiggins will be covering him. The thing about Wiggins is a very good defender. I'm not taking anything away from him. But LeBron outweighs him by about 50 pounds. Yeah, about 50 pounds. So I think I would rather be on LeBron's side of that. And I'm hoping that people don't play him as much because of that. But he's expensive. So you got to make your decision. If you don't want to take that chance against Wiggins, I understand. So maybe more of a tournament play for LeBron. But LeBron's usage is going to be there. He's playing at home. I think the spread is like 7. So even though the Cavs are predicted to win, number one, they have not been playing well lately. So I don't think any win is a given for them. And number two, 7's not that bad. 7, the game could be a 4 or 5 point game with like 2 minutes left, and it could still end by 7 or 8. So I think that game's okay, and I think LeBron's okay. And the rest of small forward is nasty, man. You got Durant who's at 10-7, but I think they're gonna blow them out. Now he plays in blowouts, so you can try. On FanDuel, Paul George PG-13 is priced way up. It seems like at small forward they kind of raised a lot of these prices on these guys. So like I'm somebody who loves to punt at the small forward position. They made it hard to do that. I mean, it's even Bazemore is 5K on FanDuel, and then even on DraftKings, it's something similar. That they kind of took away those. I mean, you got like Wayne Ellington, T.J. Warren, and those guys, but they're not really in good matchups. And with Ellington, like Miami's guys are back, but Wesley Matthews is 47. But for the small forward position in general, it seems like they kind of raise these prices to where you kind of have to take a mid-tier guy or an expensive guy. So that's something to consider, especially on a slate where there's a lot of point guards we might like. That could really slow things up. So keep that in mind. For power forward, there's one guy I really like, and I don't know if I can trust him in cash games. I might. I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't, and I'm probably being, I'm being a bit of a playing some favoritism. But I like Blake Griffin, man. I mean, his price across the board, he's not going to be like this. Once he starts really playing, it's not going to be like this. He's 75 on DraftKings, and I think he's I want to say he's in the 8s on FanDuel, 89 on FanDuel. So obviously, FanDuel, his price is pretty much where it should be. But on DraftKings at 7,500, it is super hard not to play this guy and just pair him up with Redick in a pace-up spot at home. I'm sorry, on the road in Phoenix. So I would imagine the pace is going to be higher. They don't have Paul, who typically slows the game down. So I do think Blake and Redick, but Blake particularly, Blake is probably my favorite tournament power forward today. He might be super popular. It looks like he's in a great spot. The only reason I'm thinking maybe I can get away with some lower ownership of Blake is because when people look at his minutes lately, it haven't been there. Since coming back from injury on January 24th, he played 29 minutes against Philadelphia, and then he only played 23 against Golden State. But keep in mind, he played 23 against Golden State because it was a blowout. They were never really in the game. So I think he gets at least 30 minutes here. And 30 minutes against Phoenix and what Vegas seems to think is going to be a close game, it's just too good to pass up. So I do like Blake today. Is KP going to sit out? I don't know. If KP plays, I'll take a shot with him at 63 in tournaments. I mean, I'll take a shot. But yeah, the power forward position is okay. There's some decent guys. You got Zach Randolph against Denver. It's interesting to see if Jokic plays. That's going to be the storyline of the day leading up. We don't know for sure. I know I saw some footage of him shooting the basketball yesterday on the court. So he might play, and this is the chance. Denver could really use him here, especially with Gasol and the fact that they're playing the back end of a back-to-back. They're probably a little tired. So if Jokic plays on FanDuel, he's still expensive, but on DraftKings he went under double digits, and I think that's kind of a Memphis discount there. But I would certainly take a shot on him just because you know what his upside is. Even against Denver, you know what his upside is. Is the matchup great against Gasol? No. But Jokic doesn't necessarily have to score. I think he's proven that. He can get a lot of his points just off assists and rebounds. So I think he's in play. Obviously, he's a center, but on DraftKings. But on FanDuel even, that's why I'm talking about him now at the power forwards. I think he's okay. I really do. I don't think that – am I going to play him in cash? I don't think so, just because it's a 12-game slate. So I think there's other guys we can find and to get away with to get us to that 30-40 mark, maybe even 50. But in GPPs, yeah, I'm going to have a look. If he plays, I'll have some exposure to him. And if he doesn't, I'll go back to Fareed in cash. Now, Fareed worries me. I'm sorry, I spoke too soon. Fareed does worry me a little bit. And that's because, one, it is the back end of a back-to-back. Two, apparently he has sore hamstrings or whatever. He keeps showing up as probable. And three, it's a pace-down spot. Now, he matches up very well with JaMychal Green, Fareed. They're literally like the same size and like the same weight. But when they bring in Randolph, when Zebo comes in to play power forward and, Fareed has to cover him, that's a problem. Fareed's not going to be able to cover either Gasol if they play him at the 5 or Randolph. So Randolph outweighs him by a good 50, 60 pounds. So that's going to be an issue. So I don't think Fareed is as in play today as he was yesterday. But if Jokic is out and you think he's going to get that run, you could. I do think if Jokic is out, the guy that I would rather play today is, well, at least in tournaments, and you're going to laugh at this, but probably Jerkic. I'm sorry, Jerkic. Now you're going to laugh at me. Nurkic. And don't get me wrong, his minutes haven't been there. He played 12 minutes against the Lakers. And I'm talking tournaments only. There's no way I'm sticking that guy anywhere near my cash games. But listen, if you're playing the 25-cent arcade and you want to take a shot, they might need him because of his size. This is only if Jokic is out. If Jokic is in, Jokic is going to get run. If Jokic is in, they're going to need him in this game pretty much the whole game. So I think if Jokic is in, you could pretty much put him in there. You could, you know what? Now that I think about it, you probably could throw him in cash if you really wanted to. You probably could. Anyway, there's some interesting plays today. That's the bottom line. Going back to the center position, Jokic, Gasol's in a crush spot. If Jokic is out, Gasol's going to crush. Gasol and Connolly are in phenomenal spots yet again. I'm a little worried, in fact, about the blowout. I'm worried Memphis might blow them out the gym. I don't think the line indicates that, Brook Lopez is in a phenomenal spot against New York. I didn't talk too much about that game, and I do like the game. Don't get me wrong. The only reason I didn't mention too much about it was because I'm concerned. The Knicks are tired. I mean, this is a back end of a back-to-back after playing a double overtime. Like, they basically played 4 games in 4 nights. This is basically their 5th game in 5 nights for some of these guys. And if KP is out especially, I know the line says the Knicks are favored, but the Knicks are like 1-9 straight up and back-to-back and back ends of back-to-backs this year. They're not a good back-to-back team. They're not a good team at all, don't get me wrong. But I do have concern. Now, don't get me wrong, Brooklyn's defense is the worst in the league, so I do think it's a place you want to go. Carmelo's if KP is out, you got to play Jennings and Carmelo again. You could put them in cash even. I know it's a back-to-back. It's scary. They might be tired. They're going to have no choice. They're going to have to chuck. There's nobody else on that team to chuck. So if KP plays, I'm firing away KP. Now, he's not injured. He was sick. So hopefully he could play. If he could play, fire away. If he can't play, you know where to go. You know to lock in Melo. I had like no Knicks last night, except for Jennings. I had some Jennings just because of the minutes. But as soon as KP was out, I put all my exposure, not all of it, I bumped up to like 70% exposure to Carmelo. I pivoted off of Gallinari, went to Melo. Thank God I did that because I had Gallo too, but there were spots where I had to make some moves, and Gallo was the one who ended up seeing a reduction in the lineups. But you have to do it. You have to react. You know, and NBA DFS is all about reacting, interpreting this news. You get the news, you interpret the news, you react to the news. That's what you have to do. Other centers we can talk about. Hernan Gomez. If KP is out, Hernan Gomez will if he gets another start, fire him away. He had a phenomenal game yesterday at his value, and his price is still dirt cheap. And then, of course, you got Adams, who I think is in a phenomenal matchup against Chicago. And I know they're on the back end of a back-to-back, and I don't like playing big guys in the back end of a back-to-back. But with Cantor out, he has to play. And Chicago is not very good at defending the centers. And Adams is a big, strong dude, so I can see him just coming around, just deboing his way through Rolo, Mr. Robin Lopez over there. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, we're not going to talk about everybody. There's a lot of guys in play. I don't need to tell you guys who's in a good spot. You guys can probably DVP and all the stats and all the videos. I'm sure you know who's in a good play. I just wanted to talk about the guys that I thought were interesting and the guys that maybe you were waiting on news on, and people who are in situations that could change, things like that. Anyway, that's going to do it for the game, for the position-by-position breakdown. Again, we are returning tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on the WiseTake YouTube channel or on WiseTake.com. We are returning with WiseTake Live. Have some questions ready. We'll try to answer some questions. We do have a chat available on the YouTube page, and we're trying to get something going. We're trying to have some fun. Hopefully, there'll be some news from that time that we can discuss. Obviously, there should be more news after we get off. It's only a half-an-hour show, so we're from 5:30 to 6. But, hey, until then, there could be some news. Maybe we could talk about some potential cash game plays. Maybe we can talk about pretty much anything you want. But, yeah, I mean, listen, in closing, this slate is this is a massive slate. It's a great GPP slate. But in your cash games, wait for the injury news to develop. Wait to find out who's playing. And look, there may be some slates there's nothing. Some slates you know going in what it's going to be, and that's just it, and that's fine. And if we were going to go just now, we know Jennings. Like, think about the guys you know are values already. We know Jennings is already a value. We know that if Moutier is out, Jameer is going to be a value. So think about these guys that you're already, and kind of plug them into your dummy lineups in your cash games, right? Plug them in. And watch Twitter. Watch whatever news source you watch. Have it up. Be at your computer or your phone or whatever you have to do, and just be ready, because you know that news is going to come more likely than not, especially on a 12-game slate like this. You know that news is going to come, and you want to be ready for it. You don't want to be caught off guard. It's funny, yesterday I'm thinking like, oh, you know what, it seems like everything is pretty much good. All the news is wrapped up, and then I stepped away from my computer. Big mistake. It was like 7:45. I was like, no, I'm sorry, it was more like 7:40. Right? I stepped away just for a second. I was only gone for like 5 minutes. I come back, and boom, Porzingis is out. That was big news. I had like 60% exposure in my GPPs to Porzingis. I really did. I had to go back and flip it all to Melo and make all kind. And then I had to flip it to Melo. I had to bump up my Hernan Gomez shares. I had to bump up my Markieff Morris shares because I figured Markieff would crush without Porzingis, which he did. So you got to be reactive. You have to. You got to be able to respond to that news. Again, you hear the news, you break down the news, you react to the news. It's the bottom line. Anyway, hopefully you like this podcast. I try to do it a little more different. I'm trying to make it a little more entertaining and less, I want it to be informative, but not too informative to a point where you're listening to the same stuff that on every podcast. So I know a lot of the podcasts, listen, if LeBron James is in a good spot, he's in a good spot. Everybody knows. We don't need 10 different podcasts to tell you that, right? So I'm trying to do it a little different. Hopefully you liked it. Please give me some comments. Give me some feedback on how you think we're doing. Is the podcast getting any better? What would you like to see done differently, if anything? Do you enjoy it? If you like what you see on YouTube, please click the like button for us. Also subscribe to the channel. If you are listening on Podbean, give us a follow. Give us some comments. And if you're listening on iTunes, please give us a review. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all the support. We really do. And we're really trying to grow. We're really trying to get up our fan base and really help you guys out while helping ourselves out. It's good to talk about this stuff. I do this podcast and my ROI is improving because I have to do the research because I don't want to give you guys bad information. So I'm doing more research. And anyway, again, you can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Of course, you can reach out on the WiseTake Twitter, which is WiseTake Twitter at Wise_take. And if you're not a member of WiseTake.com, please sign up. It's a free membership. You get access to our free NBA projections, our free cheat sheets, and of course our forums. We're just trying to start a little community here. That's all. But anyway, again, I appreciate you guys watching, and as always, good luck.